Hello, friends, and welcome back to the BGE Cloud. It is Friday, so you know what that means. It's time for the Plus and Pageantry, y'all. So I am super excited. I have my first in studio guest.
Hi.
We are recording live from the Empress Suite, and I'm going to let this beautiful queen introduce herself.
So I am Keilani, and I am your current reigning Ms. Curvy United Universe. Yes. I'm actually excited. This is the first time I'm seeing your studio, but also being your first guest. Honor.
Yes.
Yay.
So, yes, usually I have platform and I reach out to my guests virtually. But you're my first in person. So this is really, really fun. I'm super excited to have you. I've already taken an hour of your day because we were talking before the camera started rolling and we were having a very good heart to heart. So what you guys are going to get is going to be just as great. So I will let you have a moment to tell us about your title and your upcoming pageant.
Yeah. So we are a newer system that is, of course, expanding. We're growing. And something that really drew me to United Universe is Anne Marie, our director, has been one phenomenal with making us feel spoiled. For example, and I love this, a hefty sash that is rhinestone on both sides.
And it's got some weight to it, y'all. I held it earlier today, baby. That thing is heavy.
It is. And when I pulled it out after getting it, honestly, I was very shocked. I thought it was going to be a lot lighter. But, as a title holder and doing this as long as I have, I appreciate that because that to me just screams you care about your royalty and you want to make sure your eyes are on your royalty that's representing your system. So that's great. But also they send us little gifts as well. So we've gotten little leprechauns for challenges. We've gotten, let's see, what else have we gotten? I think earrings went out, some other stuff. They even made us referral cards.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that was really cool. They sent us a welcome box. And she just really honestly is adamant about us being real and being ourselves. And I think that is something that stood very out because a lot of times you see title holders being on the glamorous side all the time and you're not seeing the real side and you're not seeing without makeup or just kind of their everyday life. So we were going to actually, we are going to be doing something in November and then, of course, next year. So that's going to be exciting. Stay tuned for all that news. And yeah, I mean, we're just kind of working our way through the process.
Amen. Well, and gang, if you'll remember, we've had another queen from the system on. We had Miss Sierra Nolani Richards, who we absolutely love. Hey, girl. And she had the opportunity to talk to us about the system and what it's offering and how she came to be a part of the inaugural court.
Yes.
So how did that happen for you? Were you scouted or did you reach out to them and inquire about the opportunity?
That is a very good question. And I kind of say that lightly because I remember seeing their stuff and kind of stalking them at first. And then I saw Sierra stuff just because her and I have known each other since 2017, 18, I don't know, forever ago. And I remember chit-chatting about it with her and she said something and I think I reached out to them, but she also kind of pushed it. So it was almost a very mutual kind of thing. And what I liked too is they didn't just be like, oh, congratulations, you're our new title holder. I actually had to go through an interview process.
We love that.
Love that. Yes. They put me through an interview process, not only for them to get to know me, but for me to get to know them and making sure this was the right system for myself as well. And that stood out because I'm like, okay, what are my values? What are my morals? What are you all about? Does all of that match up with me? You know, how do I get to know you back? And so I think that was a very valuable time that we got to share. And at the end of it, I was just kind of like, okay, that's me, that's you. Sure, I sounds like I can handle this job. I'm interested. And though they were like, we'll call you back in a couple days and let you know our decision. And honestly, it was it was over the weekend too.
Oh wow. So
Yes,
you're like,
I was on high alert all weekend, just waiting and waiting. And then finally, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday, I got the call and they were like, congratulations. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? So that's how everything happened. It was a very surreal moment and I'm just honestly blessed. I think everything happens for a reason.
Amen.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Absolutely. You know, guys, okay. Hi, friends. We've been playing with sound today, and I had my microphone hidden in these flowers, oh so covertly. And in my spirit, something is telling me that I'm just going to have to like do the back and forth thing. So bear with us. So I skipped a part.
Oh.
Usually, when I have a guest that I know personally, I tell my audience how we met.
Oh, this is a funny story. Oh my god.
Okay, you start.
Actually, I think it was around the same time, like what, 2018, 2019? You were competing for IJM.
So that would have been 2016 or 17.
Okay. All I remember is Tawny,
Yes.
and we scheduled a mutual dinner because you and I actually have a very similar platform. And she was kind of like, hey, have you ever met Amber? And I was like, no, I've seen her, kind of just been following her like a stalker on social media, which is very weird. And she was like, I'm getting you two together. Well, I didn't know you were competing for IJM. And what happened is I ended up being your judge. And yeah.
You guys, the Pacific Northwest pageant circuit is a very small community. So be kind to everyone that you meet. If you aren't, naturally inclined, consider that, because a lot of the women who I've encountered or shared the stage with have turned around and been a judge. So yes, you were one of my judges. But yes, Tawny, also friend of the podcast. I've had her on twice, you guys. Go check out both interviews. She is such a crazy, empowered, self-starting, encouraging person.
Yes.
And she may be small, but she is mighty. Okay.
That part. That part.
So
Packed a punch.
she introduced us. I remembered we got together. I can't remember if it was like teriyaki or ramen or like
It literally was a week later, but
yeah.
I remember sitting at the judges table and you walked in, and sure enough, because of my integrity, this is professional, I looked at you and I started asking you questions as if, well, I mean, really, we'd never met each other. And I just remember going through the motions, and then once everything was done, and that was actually the year you won. And I know, I'm so glad. It's funny how it came back full circle. But I remember saying something to you about congratulations. You know, I'm so proud of you. You handled that really well. By the way, I'll see you at dinner next week.
I was like, okay, so
I recognize you.
So no, I'm joking. Actually, it was really, really cool because, we had been trying to make these plans, and Tawny was trying so hard to get us in the same room together. But, obviously, I'm very thankful I didn't meet you until afterwards. But yeah, we got together for dinner, and I remember we sat there like after the fact, and we were there for like 3 hours. Like we were there for a long time.
Yes.
It doesn't help that all three of us are talkers.
That is very true. That's very true. But I think part of it is with pageantry, you meet women that are like minded and that have goals and ambitions. And that are very strong, so they are constantly working on things. And again, we have similar platforms. So it was very neat to share what we've been working on and seeing how, especially with our platform, it's very unique, very personal, very unique. So seeing that we had that in common and seeing how we were putting that to work in our community, of course that was taking time. We were owning every moment of that.
Yeah, every moment, all the way till they wanted to close.
Yes. That and the food was delicious too. So I mean,
leftovers. I specifically remember having leftovers.
yes, and they were still just as good. Yes.
So yes, friends, let your friends set you up on the friend blind date. Okay.
Agreed. Friend blind dates, they work out. Now here we are, gosh, 2016, 2017. So what, about 8 years later, if my brain's working?
I'm going to just nod my head in agreement because I don't mental math, but yes, that sounds right.
Yeah, don't come at me. I didn't have coffee this morning, so if that's not right, I'm so sorry now.
It's fine. It's fine. Shout out to IJM, by the way. I competed for the MISS title twice, I think, before I aged out. And then I came back when they opened up the Ms. division. And now the Ms. division doesn't even exist, child.
I know. Actually, when did they get rid of that?
I think when they became a part of the I Am pageant powerhouse thing, and Nikki stepped back, they nixed the Miz. But honestly, in my opinion, I do feel like IJM is one of those systems that is kind of suited and marketed and geared toward a younger gal.
That definitely makes sense. I could see it being almost like NAM trying to have a woman division or something. So
Yeah. So I mean, some systems just are that way. However, I can say that I have always, always, always in my time in pageantry since I was made aware of IJM, I think that might be my favorite crown.
I'm not gonna lie, it's the pearls.
Yeah.
Oh, the pearls. Anytime, which actually I think there's only one other system right now that has pearls in their crowns, and I'm like, mm,
She's obviously biased because the crown on her head is very
It is.
beautiful.
it is.
Like the gold backing, and then it's totally sparkly, like it's catching the light so pretty. She was talking to me earlier, and I was literally so distracted because it's so pretty.
It's very beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. I am a little biased because I have a thing for pearls. I think part of it is because of my connection, my grandmother, there is a special connection between that. So anytime I see pearls, I'm like,
That one's mine. Yes, but I do. I absolutely love the IJM crown. I love their branding. So if I had a little girl, I would definitely let her do IJM. There is another system, it's newer, and I have a love-hate relationship with their crown.
the international mess.
No, when I did International Ms., I like their crown.
Are they the ones with the pearl crown?
Yeah, I think their crown also has pearls in it. I competed there.
What?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it was good. I had a good time. It was in Florida. Deja vu. Deja vu. It just happened. Okay. I dreamt this. Um, but yeah, I love their crown. It's heavy. I love a heavy crown.
okay. I'm not gonna lie, mine's not actually that heavy, and I like
But
it.
it's got some weight to it.
It does. I had to double think that because I get so used to wearing it that I forget sometimes it's on my head. But I like the weight of this just because, sometimes if they're too heavy by the end of the night when you're doing an event, you start getting that neck pain and that headache, and you're just kind of like, I just want to get this off. I want to go home, take some ibuprofen. I don't know.
Heavy is the head, folks.
Oh gosh, yes. a very sparkly hat. Very sparkly hat.
Absolutely, and we all deserve one. So I'm going to say this to my audience. If you've never competed in a pageant, I'm sure that at this point there is one out there for you. One thing that we both emphasize when advising people on what to do or how to start their pageant career is you need to have pageants that resonate with who you are as an individual. I was actually having this conversation the other day with someone else talking about the advice to come as you are in pageantry and how we are making leaps and bounds to actually making that a true statement. As much as we want it to be true, it's not always the case in pageants. For example, I got my start in the Miss USA system.
I did too, actually.
So
Years ago. Oh gosh.
which don't
Yeah, actually, it's been 11 years since, yeah, Miss USA is where I started.
what state?
It was for Maui, USA, for Hawaii.
For Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was trying to say it right.
Hawaii.
I'm also working on saying Samoa right. Instead of being like Samoa. I would love to
Face.
I would love to see more of the Pacific Islands represented at Miss USA. Even if to start they had like a Miss Pacific Island, like
Yeah.
I would love to see that representation. I mean, Hawaii has been holding it down for a long time, but I just think that across all of the islands, there's so much diversity there.
Yeah.
Even in the Caribbean islands that are U.S. territory, even if we had a Miss U.S. territory,
I mean, that
would be incredible.
would be.
So I definitely want to see more of that. But what is something about your very first pageant experience, good or bad, that always sticks with you when you're considering continuing in the pageant world?
So to be actually very transparent, I never considered myself growing up to be a glitz and glam type of girl. I wasn't very girly girl. I was raised in a family that farm, hunt, and fished. I mean, I was playing in the dirt, learning how to drive a Ford in a hayfield. I mean, very far off from what you see in the pageant world. And I mean, I guess it's not as far off when you get into those southern states or the Midwest states because that's how they grow up too. But for me specifically, especially living in Hawaii, I just kind of was like doing my own thing. And I remember working for a bridal store and we had the girls coming in and they were modeling our dresses and the director was of course scouting and he goes, "Have you ever thought about joining a pageant?" And I remember laughing in his face because I was like, "Absolutely not." Like the only reason I walk in our shows is because my boss was out of models or did not have the body shape to fit that dress right. And mine happened to fit that dress. And she just, please. So I would be like, okay, I'll wear it. And I would walk across stage. So going back to your question, he convinced me by saying, just come to practice. You don't have to commit. Just check us out.
Okay.
That part. I did. And I remember the girls being very supportive. So it started there. And I didn't really think much. I was like, okay, I signed up. Challenge. I like a challenge. I was always athletic, things like that. And then going through the motions, I found it to be a little stressful. But when it came to pageant day, that's where everything changed. I mean, completely everything changed. I realized that at the time, I was 120 pounds. I mean, very, very small. I I know. I was very small, but I say that because even being at that weight, I was still too big.
I can't even imagine that weight in my mind being someone that is usually around 220,
Yes.
100 pounds lighter. Like I obviously know there are plenty of women that fit that mold, but like I'm trying to picture that on me and the way I would have a lollipop head. Like I just can't. I can't deal. But girl, okay.
It it was something where it did fit at the time before I grew into what I call my woman body. Um, and it was still too big. I mean, I was very curvy. I had stuff up here and down south.
Oh, this is a safe place. You can say. You can say.
Okay. I had the girls upstairs and the junk in the trunk, and it was very different from a lot of the body sizes that you were seeing walking across stage. And being in a swimsuit in front of everybody was a very vulnerable situation. And I just remember that was the point. I was like, I'm not good enough to be up here. These girls have just, I mean, they're stick thin. They're stick thin. I'm not. Like, I got a little meat down here. I mean, not much, but I still got a little jiggle. I got, jiggle in the back. Like, my butt cheeks are falling out of my swimsuit. I got some little side boob.
And for all of that to be like in style right now, like
Right. This tells you how long I've been competing. Um, but after all of that, evening gown went fine because, of course, a little bit more modest. But I think that was the moment where, after everything was said and done, they announced the winners. Of course, I didn't place. I just was like, I'm never doing this again. 100%. I was never doing this again. I felt embarrassed, uncomfortable, insecure. I never found myself to be an insecure person. And I just remember feeling a little lost as a person.
lost.
Yeah.
So the feelings you left with from that pageant experience didn't just stop at pageantry. This is something that affected how you saw yourself as an individual.
Oh, yeah. And I would say overall, prior to the pageant, I was a pretty confident person. I didn't really care what people thought about me. I just kind of was doing my own thing, and that shaped how I really actually viewed about myself. And it kind of made me just, I guess, go south mentally with myself. And it wasn't that I was unhealthy. I was very active. It just, my body was different. And it wasn't until I moved back up here and something just kind of was like, you know what? It's a different state. Maybe, you're working out a lot more at the time. Again, still about 120 pounds, but this time I started getting like a 4-pack going, and I have pictures.
Okay.
I was actually training to go take my physical tests for the US Coast Guard. And I mean, I was pushing myself. I was running, I was hiking, like doing all sorts of stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe I should sign up for another pageant, see where this goes. And that's actually how I met David and Maureen with Washington, USA.
Love, absolutely love.
Oh,
Love.
one thing I love about them is no matter how much time passes, you will still always be part of their family. It doesn't matter whether you've won, it doesn't matter if you've been a contestant once, it doesn't matter if you've been there 20 times. They will always remember you, they will always love you. And that's something I just love about them.
I have to say, before we go any further with this topic in particular, um, I'm sorry to break it to any Washington, Idaho, Montana former contestants. I'm their favorite. I'm absolutely their favorite. There it has been said at several pageants over the years. So keep trying. Don't give up. But as it stands,
I'm not even going to argue that because you're incredible. So I'm
stop it, stop it.
like, you're incredible. So I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, you can have that. You can have all that. But yeah, so and I'm pretty sure Maureen remembers this. I called her off and on for about 4 months. 4 months. I called Maureen and just kept asking her questions, just asking, inquiring, asking and inquiring. And honestly, if that's what it takes for you to land on a system, yeah, definitely do it. And I remember Maureen asking me too when I finally was about to pull the plug and she did her interview process. And she goes, okay, is there, and I will remember this for honestly the rest of my life. She goes, is there anything that could potentially, what was the question? Is there anything that could potentially strip you of the title or create controversy if you were to win?
Side note, always disclose, guys. Even if you're uncertain, just disclose just to be safe.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And I was truthful with her. I said, growing up, my life wasn't always peaches and cream. I said, I went through a very rough point in my adolescent years and I made some poor choices. I got caught up in the wrong people. I mean, it was very dark, but yes. I honestly, I speak about it because it's something that a lot of people don't know about me. And
I didn't know.
no, actually a lot of people don't. And I'm not actually closed off to the story. I've went through, honestly, a lot of different types of abuse. I was adopted and the guy actually stalked we call him the sperm donor. So he stalked and I had to go undercover. Yes. And then having like an older boyfriend, I actually went to juvie. I've been to juvie numerous times. I used to get into fights. Oh yeah, I was so bad as a child. Listen,
we're gonna have to have a different episode where we just deep dive on your backstory.
Let me trauma dump on you in that episode.
We should do the bowl.
Oh, there we go.
The trauma dump bowl?
Yes, the trauma. There we go. Yes. I mean, yeah, from drugs and alcohol to getting court ordered to anger management. I mean, I really went through it as a teenager.
At 120 pounds, he was doing all this stuff.
Listen, I don't go to my hometown for a reason, and that's because when I run into people, they still remember me being that person.
You know what? Stop doing that to people, okay? Yes. All right, holding on to who I was. When you just don't, you don't have the vision to comprehend who I am now. Leave that where it's at, okay? I mean, I don't know her.
I left her a long time ago. Like she is in the rear view mirror in the dust somewhere. I don't know where she's at.
To circle things back, yes. I think my experience was a little bit different when I came into pageantry. My very first pageant was Miss Washington USA, as I've expressed here multiple times. But at that time, it was just David. I hadn't met Maureen yet. So when I sent in that's how long I've been competing. When I sent in my inquiry, I was talking with David. Yeah. And at that time, they used to do these like meet and greet mixers in Bellevue or Kirkland, one of those, on the east side. And so I went to one and I felt really confident. I've never had significant body image issues. Mm-hmm. So even though, I was a curvier person, and you're welcome. I didn't go in like, oh my God, I'm gonna be the fatty. Like I didn't have that experience. But when I walked in, I did feel out of place.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of the women who I saw had been at this for years, and nobody looked like me. Yeah. At that particular meeting, there were no other Black girls. So it was like I didn't even have that to lean on.
Yeah.
So that was kind of something that took some navigating. And then David did this thing back then where he would just kind of like assess your look. So I went up and he goes, okay, full lips, okay, good ears. I was like, ears, okay. I'm like, oh, all right.
You're like, thanks for
Judges,
listening, I
right?
guess.
The judges are gonna look at my ears. And then he stops and he goes, is that your real eye color? Spoiler alert, it was not. He goes, how about something a little bit more natural? At the time, I was wearing contact lenses that were quite reminiscent of a vampire in the Cullen family. Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was me. So
She just transported from Forks. It's fine.
I was like, I took the ferry in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the start of my pageant journey. And at that time, I was already 180, 190.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to have a really great time, and I'm going to be everything that I want to be on stage. So I had that mentality very early on. And I also had the understanding that this is a business and one where participation helps fuel what happens next. So in the pageant industry, it was like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. You should compete here. You should compete there. I always took that with a grain of salt because I'm like, let's be real about how I'm going to do if I compete there. Like a director is not going to tell you, or probably shouldn't tell you if they're professional. Sorry, hun, you're too fat, you're too tall, you're too skinny, you're not a performer, you're not charismatic enough. They're not going to say that. So it's up to you to do your research, look into how the pageant has panned out in previous years, look into ask former contestants how they felt, not just the winner. The winner's obligated to do some things.
But also just look at previous title holders' pictures, because when you start noticing that pattern and that trend, you start realizing what the judges look for.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about directors not disclosing certain information, going back to when I talked to Maureen and I disclosed all of that, I said, listen, I said, I went through it. And I said, but this does not define who I am as a person. It built me as a person. And now I can share that with my community because now I bring something more powerful than sympathy. And that's empathy.
Mm-hmm.
I said, this is not textbook. It's because I lived it. And because I lived it, I can connect on a deeper level. I can connect on a level that resonates, because if you hear it from someone that's like, oh yeah, I went to school for, mental awareness and this and that, and they're pulling stuff out of the textbook, you're like, okay, and versus someone that's like, oh, let me tell you about my story. And then you're having a real moment. And I told Maureen that, and I'm pretty sure she still remembers because we've brought it up here and there when I've seen her throughout the years. And it was a very heartfelt moment. And she did tell me when we were kind of talking about the pageant, you can't tell because I'm sitting, but I'm only 5'2", and I know I'm not very tall. I'm not very tall. I'm like a pageant gnome when I hit the stage.
I, on the other hand, am definitely tall. I'm 5'5.5". So it's important to know. And when my hair is up, that's like another 2 or 3 inches.
Girl, listen, I didn't meet a lot of requirements for some pageants because they started at 5'5" or 5'7", flat foot. And
I remember like trying to get an agent like to model. That 5'8" requirement pisses me off.
Yeah. I, not even on my best day, standing as tall as I possibly could, would even get close.
I'm like, do we have to like go to the chiropractor before and like get all decompressed and then
Oh my gosh, like the tables to get like super stretched out. Oh,
get all medieval about it.
yeah.
I would say I do appreciate that that's how Maureen's brain works. Like she also a friend of the podcast, so go watch her interview. But she has a way of recalling that information. Like, and
Yes.
I've seen her do it with so many contestants
Oh,
over
man.
the last, what is this, 2024? So over the last decade plus, we'll say that over the last decade plus.
Yes.
When I think I met her at that pageant, that first pageant, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she was a big part of my process. Like I didn't meet her in person until the pageant.
Until the pageant. That makes sense.
But yeah, I think it's really important that we are forthcoming about these stories about how we got our start
Mhm.
and how we navigate the industry now.
Yep.
Because there was a show about these girls. They were gymnasts, and the gym kept telling people, "Oh, if your daughter trains with us, she's going to go to the Olympics." You know,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same way if you don't know what to look for
Yep.
in pageantry. So don't get sold a dream,
Mhm.
because there's so much that goes into competition. And when you're shopping for a system, one thing that I don't think a lot of people consider are returners.
Yes, that is a big thing. I would say if you start catching on, there's a lot of returners. That honestly could be a really good sign. That means it's a really good system. They want to keep coming back. And before I lose the train of thought too, going back to Maureen and her recalling information, what I liked about Maureen too is going back to my appearance being 5'2", but I also have huge tattoo. And she was very transparent from the get-go. I mean, she told me that in the pageant world, some judges may favor it and some judges may not. And this is why. And I appreciated that because she allowed me as a contestant to make an informed decision. And I remember her telling me about a judge who came from Tap Out. And of course, he's tatted, right? He has, I mean, tats everywhere. And she goes, and you never know, somebody like that could be on our panel. And I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna do this thing because my thing at that point, how you said you accepted who you were in your body was if I happen by the slim chance win, we weren't just going to be pretty faces under a crown. We were going to actually break a standard and we were going to actually be a conversation starter and we were going to make some sort of history in the pageant industry. And that to me was much more important. And that to me was speaking louder volumes. And I say that because Austin Ride, I ran into him at Washington, and he said he didn't really watch a whole lot of pageants, but he did watch that year, and he did remember me, and he did remember that huge tattoo because I did not cover it up. And I was actually very shocked because that is someone that is a big name in the pageant world, and he has of course, encountered a lot of people. So the fact that someone like him remembered that from years ago meant I did my job, even though I didn't win nor place.
I think it's important. I think it's important to share stories like that
Mhm.
just to get the idea across because there are a lot of moving parts to this thing we call
Yes.
pageantry. And
Yes.
I believe that if you go out and you absolutely leave it all on the stage,
Yes.
there's so many more opportunities for you outside of that
Mhm.
one performance.
Yes.
Like I know that I've gotten modeling opportunities
Yep.
and opportunities to travel
Yep.
and things like that. Even though I never placed at Miss Washington USA, though I was voted Miss Congeniality 4 consecutive times. Thank you
Okay.
guys. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Yes.
So I think that sharing experiences like that, Austin does hold weight. Like,
He
you
does.
know, if you've ever had your makeup or um photos done by him, you know, it's like a calling card. It's kind
Yes.
of saying that you've made an investment into being a top candidate for whatever job you're applying for.
Yeah.
And it is a job, guys.
It is. And I do think as a contestant, something I've learned is having those quality photos. It does make or break. And
I think
depending what system.
yeah,
It
like
also depends what system.
I think it's like what level of competition you're at.
Yes.
Because I know of a contestant who won Miss Washington USA and they had a cell phone headshot at state. And if I'm not
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was Allison Rowe.
First off, love her. Love her faith.
Her eyes are crazy.
Oh,
Like in the best possible way. I'm not being
oh,
shady. Like she has like these beautiful big eyes.
Yes. No, I caught your wave on that because she does. She has the most big, beautiful eyes, and she has those long lashes too. And I'm like, I don't know if they're real or not, but either way, they're working for you, and I'm a fan for it, and I'm
And
here for it.
her platform during her reign, and I was following her and
Wait, her headshot was a cell phone photo?
don't quote me. Look, covering the don't quote me, but I think her state headshot.
I remember seeing her photo. I didn't think it was, but it was.
Yeah, but I mean, she's a very smart, talented gal, so it's
Yes.
probably natural light on a white wall, kind of a, you know, like
Yeah.
planned out. She didn't just pop up and take a selfie. But her platform surrounding human trafficking
Yes.
and her sharing her experience actually opened my eyes to how much of a threat trafficking is here in Washington
Oh, yeah.
State, in all port cities,
Mhm.
really. So I love that. I love when we have a title holder that really just kind of opens our eyes to something and is able to teach us something. There are some very generic platforms in the pageant space.
Yes.
So whenever I come across one, like I had a young lady on my podcast by the name of Destiny, and her platform was all circled around teaching financial literacy for women.
Okay.
And I just thought that was so incredible
Yeah.
because that is one thing that is lacking in the public school system.
I honestly no, I agree with that. It is. And the platform thing, when you said that, I agree because judging, I'm not even kidding you. And I say this with, of course, the utmost respect because it is a very real thing. But if you are going to pick mental health, please specifically find something with mental health. And what I mean by that is, as a judge, when you have 40 girls and every other one or every three of them is coming in and it's like, hi, I'm so and so, and my platform is mental health. And they're like, it's so important because it affects your mood or in da 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 da. I honestly, I check out. I check out as a judge. I forget who you are. I am so done by the fifth girl that probably said mental health. And I just coached someone recently and she goes, well, I'm a big advocate for mental health. And I couldn't help it. I rolled my eyes. I went, oh my gosh, here we go again. And I didn't mean to, but it's because it's so overplayed. It is important. So I said, okay, well, what about mental health? What is it specifically about mental health that you want to focus on? What target, like what, well, who are you targeting, you know?
I think getting people to expand on their ideas would create more diversity in this space, which is why I mean, for the longest time, I was definitely anti-coach. I was like, nobody can teach me to be me. Like, how are you going to teach me to be me? right?
Yes.
But I've grown to learn that, there is some relief in collaboration
Yes.
because I spent some time doing and have judged here and there over the years. And I mean, the littles are cute. The littles, like when they're competing, they're so cute.
They're sassy.
But
too.
all of them love macaroni and cheese. You know what I mean? So when you come into the interview, they're all talking about macaroni and cheese. I think a few years back, before mental health was the popular choice, I think it was breast cancer. That was a popular
feeding the homeless.
And then I think it was Alicia Derby who I heard, you know, you're in a room with, I'm going to start low, 20 plus other women who are just as beautiful, just as capable, just as smart.
Yes.
And you're all applying for the same job.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe she phrased it, what are you going to do when you get the title? And most of their answers is, well, I'm going to go to the schools and I'm going to talk to the youth and I'm going to feed the homeless and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And while, yes, do all of those things, what's going to set you apart from the next girl who comes in and they say, I'm going to go to all the schools and I'm going to speak to the youth and I'm going to, so when you're considering your platform, folks, it should be something that is easy for you to talk about, that is complementary to who you are as a person and the actual advocacy that you want to do in your community. Um, and if you put the time into expanding on, okay, I like the color blue. What about the color blue?
Yes.
And you just ask those questions that make you go deeper and deeper and deeper into it. You'll find a creative way to present your platform. And then also don't be afraid to collaborate with a coach.
Well, and circling back to the gal that I was coaching, she said, well, part of it is I went through a lot of mental health issues when I went through postpartum with my son. And I said, oh, okay, there we go. I was like, yeah, I was like, okay. I was like, so that caused some of it. And she said, yeah, she's like, this is what happened. And I said, there it is. We're going to target your thing about mental health during postpartum, how that affected you, and you want to spread awareness about it. And she goes, okay. So we honed in on that. And I remember after her interview, we discussed it, and she goes, I am so thankful. And she was a first time pageant contestant, okay? First time pageant contestant. And she goes, I am so thankful you, she said, you grilled me, because I grilled her. I mean, I grilled her about this. And she goes, I'm so thankful you grilled me about that, because she goes, I was in the room. So they had them all the contestants in the room. So they all heard what they were speaking on. And guess what? The big topic was mental health. So she heard exactly what I was talking about. And she goes, after a while, I was like, another one? And I went, yeah, that is why if you're picking your platform, how is that going to set you apart? What do you plan on doing? I think a good format when you're talking about your platform is, what's your connection? Like how, why, what inspired you? And then what you're planning on doing with it, or what you're currently doing. So I would do what inspired you, what motivated you, what's your connection, what you're currently doing with it, and then what you're planning on doing with it,
and how that connects to the system that you're applying for.
That part. That part. And honestly, as a judge, and this is a little controversial because it is judge preference, but if you can be realistic with your expectations, right? So kind of being like, ideally, I would love to get into as many schools in my community, but of course, I work a normal job. So my goal is to at least get into 4 during my reign year to spread awareness, and then maybe work with some more organizations. I currently work with this organization, but maybe try 2 more that, involve the same platform work.
I'd agree. I think
Yeah.
I think it's important to definitely have all of those factors and the understanding of how your platform connects with the system, because a lot of times systems will have their own platforms, and in order to build a cohesive brand, you want those things to kind of align. But going in and telling the judges that you have a plan, like, I mean, your stage performance is likely going to be very close. You want to have something, because 9 out of 10 pageants, the interview is before you get on stage. You want that connection piece so that when that judge sees you on stage, if they have it that you're close with somebody else in their mind, they're going to think back, because you can't turn those kind of receptors off. They're going to think back and be like, that was the young lady who had the plan. Or that was the person who had the plan, because this system here has so many opportunities for you to compete. This isn't a commercial, but it's true. So, they have Mrs.
For our system?
Yeah.
Oh, we honestly have a system for
They have a title for everyone. There's a couples division. They have virtual divisions for trans folks.
So we have a division for everybody, as far as littles all the way up to elite. And I mean, we take queens, kings, couples, as you mentioned. So what you were talking about as far as virtual, we are doing hybrid, and that goes for all of our divisions. And so that is actually something that is new. I am still learning more about it. So what's going on with that is it's either activewear or swimwear and interview. That portion will be hybrid. Yes, it's going to be through Zoom, and then the activewear or swimwear, whichever one you're more comfortable in, that will be recorded. And then the platform work, and that's where it's going to be on stage. And the evening gown or tuxedo, I believe, is for the kings. That will be in person.
Got it. Because I was thinking that some of the competitions that are listed on the site were just virtual. So I didn't realize that they were all hybrid in.
To a degree. There is a little bit that is in person. Like I said, the evening gown, actually, I think all the optionals are going to be in person. So evening gown or tux, I think it's called advocacy or platform. It's essentially your platform, and then the optionals.
Okay. I looked into United Universe for myself. And I did like what I saw. I definitely like that there's a space for everyone. I feel conflicted because I've never competed under a curve title. You know, though I am though I am qualified, I've never competed under a curve title. I've gone out of my way not to, and not to compete in, say, like, just black pageants or things like that. But it's like sometimes you just got to go where you're wanted. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what it feels like. But how do you feel carrying a curve title? Do you feel like that puts you in a box, or does it make you feel more confident?
To be honest, I actually love this question because I've been on both sides of the spectrum, and I just started competing in curve back in, I think, like 2020 or 2021, and I've done very well in curve, but I don't think it puts me in a box. I was actually very proud when that title came out, and I think it's because for me, it's finally getting that recognition in that pageant world. And I think it's because, yes, we're seeing a shift in diversity. We're seeing a shift in kind of the aesthetics of how our title holders are looking. but there is still kind of that mold. So the fact that there is a placement, I was like, this is important. And we need somebody with a voice. We need somebody to represent. And when I wear this title, people will go, da 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 da, curve. Okay, yes, ma'am. And they are curvy, right? So for me, it kind of didn't matter, but for the community, it mattered because it gave them that inspiration in themselves to know that there is a place for them. There is somebody out there representing them, being their voice. And I think for me, that's where it continued to just fuel my fire to keep being where honestly, I think I was just meant to be placed.
I feel like the audience should let us know, like, how do you feel? Do you feel that pageants that cater to a specific group or demographic should be something that's empowered and should stay around? Or do you feel like we should just all compete mosh posh mixed up in a bowl together? Like, what do you think? I'm going to put that to y'all. Comment and let us know.
That's a good question.
Right?
That's a good,
That's
a good one.
every now and then I come up with a good one, girl. Okay, so Miss United Universe, again, something that I looked into for myself. I love again that they're pushing for all this representation. I could say that this would be somewhere where I would invest, but I think the turnaround time for me is too soon. So please tell everybody the date if you know it of the next pageant.
The date. So we are looking at November 7th through 10th. And then next year, I don't really know.
Next year isn't. You know, we're gonna talk about right now. We're gonna talk about November 7th through 10th, in Florida.
It is in Florida.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been shopping for a pageant for myself since I got back from my last pageant, and I've been all the dates, all the places,
Everything.
right.
Yes.
So I think that this is going to be really cool. Do we know anything about live stream or anything like that?
Ooh. I do know Anne Marie is working very hard on all of that. Right now, she has honestly her hands so full, and I applaud her. I mean, she is really, oh man, I don't know honestly how she's doing it. She's managing everything. I mean, from all the backstage stuff, trying to get everything ready for the upcoming pageant, all of us title holders. One thing too that I really love is we have monthly meetings with our title holders. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's not also something that's unexpected, kind of like how some directors will be like, oh, by the way, we have a meeting on this random date. And you're like, okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, no.
Thanks. Can't do it. I have a job.
That part. That part noted, question mark. No, it was something where it's like, okay, it's going to be the first Monday at this time consistently. So it was always at that time. So, and she really did a good job on making sure it fit a time frame no matter where we are, in the world, that it worked. And so she really did a good job with that. And it just allows us, one, to kind of keep up with what's being worked on, kind of like if there's certain things that we need to be aware about, or if there's stuff that she needs help on, then that just honestly is just a time for us to just be connected and stay in the loop. And I think that's important too, that a lot of directors should definitely do with their title holders, because honestly, it's just fun. We just kind of have fun. We just catch up when we're like, hey guys, how's life? Like, what are you working on? Like,
that's so cool. Great. Like having the opportunity to stay connected as a court,
yes.
And support each other and be in the loop on what's going on. I think that just is going to make your group that much more cohesive. Yes. I have seen like pageants at the farewell where you can tell these women did not know or spend a lot of time together. And as you know, when you're in the audience, you can tell So
It's awkward.
even though you all are all over the place, geographically, you're still able to feel connected and in the loop on what everybody's doing. And Anne Marie, hi, my name's Amber Bruce. It's great to be talking with you. If there's a way that I can compete 100% virtual.
She said, call her.
Yeah, so if I could just do that, because my travel budget is like, but yes, so very, very impressive what I've seen from the system so far. You and I can talk all day.
Yes.
And
We got stories for
right,
days.
stories, experiences.
Oh gosh, yes. The trauma bowl. We came up
The
with
trauma bowl. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that trauma candy dump thing.
Yes.
But I will ask. We'll have to do a part 2, folks. So just bear with us. But I will ask what I ask all my guests.
Okay.
How do you tap into your big goddess energy?
Oh gosh, my big goddess energy. That is a really good question that I've never really had to think about. To be honest with you, I think my biggest thing is I kind of just, it really does take months and months to prep for a pageant. And I'm always redoing my plans. And when I say redoing my plans, I start off with having this idea of how I want to look, how I want to do a routine. And then I'm always mixing it up and rebuying dresses. And I mean, it is constant work.
Oh my gosh. Starting, I just have to say this right now. Going into a pageant and being like, oh, I already have a gown is the biggest setup. I promise you.
Mm-mm.
Because this is coming from a boutique owner. I am pushing gowns right now. Okay. But even prior to the way I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to sign up for this pageant. It won't even be that much money because I already have a gown.
No.
Then the next thing you know, I'm shopping.
Yes.
But I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You're tapping into your big goddess energy.
Yes. No, I relate to that because I think one year I got 4 different gowns in like a 10 to 12 month span. And it is. And I think it's because, and I say this lightly, I am a queen on a budget, even though that did not sound like a queen on a budget, but it's because I also like to be unique. And so I'm constantly revising my idea of how I want to look on stage, how to be unique, how to be different, and then having to change my choreography and all this stuff. My brain is going 1,000 miles an hour until competition week. By that time, even then, it's still going 1,000 miles an hour. And by the time I'm getting ready for stage, and I didn't understand this being a new contestant, is when you see title holders that have their earphones in, and that might be ignoring you, it might seem that they're unapproachable or they're not being friendly or they're not being sister like. That might not be the case. And I turned into one of these. So I was also one of the ones that kind of judged a couple times. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to clear the air there. This is my metaphorical sage, clearing the air there. We're going to, whoo! I turned into one because I realized what needed to happen. I needed to put some earphones in. I needed to put some music in and keep one calm and rethink about my mission, my goal for that category. So if it's interview, what was I planning on talking about? How do I want to feel when I leave? If it's fun fashion, I told you I'm notorious for a signature move and making sure that I know exactly when to execute that, what steps I'm taking. I mean, I'm really running through my routines every single second until I am at that step. And I have those earbuds, so this is my little cheater. Once I get to that bottom step, I take them out, I put them in my bra, and I'm boom, I'm ready. Like this is how my brain functions. And then of course I'm on stage and ready to go. Now, evening gowns and same thing, you know. So as far as big goddess energy, I'm like, where do I find that? I'm trying to still figure that out while answering.
It sounds like, if I can help, it sounds like for you, being centered in your own
There we
thoughts
go. Yes,
is how you find your big goddess energy. So
that's good.
whether that's you taking a step back from the crowd and
Yeah.
just finding a moment to yourself, or listening to music that inspires you to perform your best, it
Mhm.
sounds like that's how you find your big goddess energy.
I like that. Yes, I do. I like that. And I think part of it too is just remembering who I am and not again fitting that mold. We were talking about that earlier. I've got told numerous times I may have not won a pageant because I'm too much of a performer. But for me, I'm okay with that because that's what I came to do. And I have prepped 4 months for that routine. Therefore, I'm gonna give you that routine. And if you don't like it, well, you know what? That's on you. It wasn't your cup of tea, and that's okay. But also, even in interview, that is one of the most nerve-wracking points. And for me, actually, I love this story. I got asked, "What is your specialty and talent?" And if you were to ask me that in a casual conversation, I would tell you flat out, I'm the most untalented person you will ever meet. I'm super clumsy. And I'm sure I have talents, but not stuff I could project on stage. I am not Miss America qualified because I would go up there and probably look like Gracie Lou Freebush. Okay. Like that is naturally just me. So you can't tell a judge that. And I just looked at them and I said, my specialty is to find pageants without talent. And I smiled and I took a pause and I said, or a natural gabber. I hear that's quite a talent. And then I had the room laughing. And that's also another thing going back to the big goddess energy is remembering who I am. You know, that was part of my humor. That's part of just me naturally in real life. Someone that's just kind of easygoing, that likes to laugh. So being able to project that personality in whether it's on stage or in interview, that matters. And that honestly, that set me apart. They did find me after the pageant and they were like, by the way, that was hilarious. And how you handled that caught us off guard. We were expecting you to sing, we were expecting you to dance, or I don't know. And you just were like, eh, hi.
Well, another
So,
thing to consider,
yeah.
different judge, different day, different results.
Yeah,
So
that is true. You could walk into the pageant and already not be what the judges are looking for. So just honestly leave everything you set out to do on that stage. Don't focus on what you think the judges want to hear, what you think the judges want to see, what you think this and that. Like, yes, still meet certain criterias and certain things, but like look clean, be polished, be well spoken, know what you're going to talk about, but still be authentically you.
yeah, and see,
Yeah.
one thing that I do to my guest that isn't always very kind.
Oh.
w-
Oh my
Um,
god, why is my heart like
like,
freezing? I'm like, oh my gosh.
no, this is generally.
Okay.
So I do not provide my guest a script. I don't provide
Oh yeah.
any questions. I love a free form environment.
Yeah.
I feel like, conversations are more authentic that way.
Yeah.
However, when you're dealing with pageant professionals, that is one of the most nerve-wracking positions to be in because a conversation can take any kind of twist and turn. But honestly, I do it because I love you guys. You never know when you're going to be in a position to have to hold a conversation with somebody you know well, somebody you don't know, but and need to still be poised and need to still
Yes.
deliver. So as women are preparing, I love having them on my show so that we can do this together. So I want to say thank you all for tuning in. This has been an incredible conversation. Thank you for visiting us in
Yes.
person.
I know, thank you. Oh my
Again,
gosh.
y'all, this is the BGE Cloud Podcast, and the segment is called The Plus in Pageantry. Take a moment to think about how you tap into your big goddess energy.
Mm.
I love you. I'm getting all kinds of emails right now. I love you. Have a great day. Bye.